She caught the rifle mid-air without flinching.
The sniper team went silent.
For 3 years, they'd walked past her like she was
invisible, just another janitor mopping floors and collecting their spent brass.
But in the next 60 seconds, she would fire a single shot that would shatter everything they believed about talent, about respect, about who deserves to hold a weapon. Her hands moved across that rifle with surgeon-like precision.
The scope adjustments were flawless, and when her finger touched that trigger, 7 elite Delta Force snipers were about to learn the most expensive lesson of their careers. The smell hit you first.
Gun oil mixed with concrete dust and the sharp metallic tang of spent ammunition. The underground training facility at Fort Bragg ran 24/7,
but mornings had their own rhythm. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead,
casting harsh shadows across shooting lanes that stretched back into darkness.
Sarah Martinez pushed her cleaning cart between the stations,
her movements efficient and invisible.
She'd perfected the art of being unremarkable.
In 3 years working this range,
she'd learned that invisibility was its own superpower.
12-inch spread at 800. That's embarrassing, Martinez. Wind caught me.
I'm telling you. The ventilation system creates unpredictable drafts. Sarah suppressed a smile as she swept brass casings into her dustpan.
There was no draft.
Sergeant Jake Martinez, who shared her last name but had never once acknowledged her existence, was
pulling his shots left because he tensed his shoulder every time he
squeezed the trigger. She'd watched him do it approximately 4,000 times over 3 years.
The 7-man sniper team dominated the range like they owned it.
In a sense, they did.
These were Delta Force candidates, the top 1% of an already elite military.
They moved with the casual confidence of men who'd proven themselves exceptional.
They never noticed the cleaning woman cataloging their every mistake. Captain Davis was talking equipment. I'm telling you, the new Schmidt and Bender scopes are worth the investment.
The glass clarity alone.
Clarity doesn't mean anything if you can't read wind.
Lieutenant Chun interrupted. He was the best shooter in the group, though he didn't brag about it.
Sarah respected that.
Speaking of wind reading, Davis continued, I watched some National Guard guys shooting yesterday. Absolutely clueless about mirage interpretation.
It's like they'd never trained with atmospheric conditions.
Martinez laughed.
That's the difference between us and them.
Natural talent versus trying hard. Some people are born for this. Sarah's broom paused for just a fraction of a second,
then continued its steady rhythm. She'd heard variations of this speech countless times.
The elite explaining why they were elite. The special ingredient that separated real shooters from everyone else. That mysterious quality called natural talent. It was complete nonsense, and Sarah could prove it.
She'd spent 3 years watching these men shoot, absorbing their techniques, understanding their mistakes, memorizing every correction their instructors made.
While they saw repetition as the path to mastery, Sarah saw patterns. Mathematical patterns.
Physics patterns.
Psychological patterns. Every shot told a story if you knew how to read it. The morning continued with its familiar choreography. Weapons were loaded with practiced efficiency.
Shots cracked through the air in steady rhythm.
The electronic scoring system beeped and displayed results.
Men cursed or celebrated based on numbers that defined their worth.
Sarah worked around them like water flowing around stones.
Taking a break, Davis announced around 0900, 15 minutes.
My shoulders tight. The team filed toward the break room, their voices fading up the concrete stairs. Sarah waited until the heavy door clanged shut.
Then she set down her broom. She walked to Chun's station. He'd left his rifle on the bench, still warm from use. She didn't touch it.
That would cross a line she wasn't ready to cross yet.
But she studied it like a scholar studying ancient text.
Scope settings. Elevation dial to compensate for a meter drop.
Windage adjusted 3 clicks right for the prevailing conditions. Bipod legs extended to account for the concrete platform's height. Stock adjusted for his shorter arms.
Every detail told her something.
Every setting revealed a decision. Her phone buzzed. A text from her daughter. MOM. Parent-teacher conference is Thursday.
Can you make it? Sarah typed back quickly. Wouldn't miss it, baby.
Love you.
She slipped the phone away as boots thundered on the stairs. Showtime over.
Back to invisibility.
The afternoon session ramped up intensity. They were preparing for
qualification trials, the tests
that would determine who advanced to the next selection phase. Martinez, you're up. Davis called. Show us what you've got. Martinez settled into position at the 1,000-meter lane. This was the distance that separated good shooters from great ones.
At 1,000 meters, every variable multiplied. Wind speed, temperature, humidity.
Even the Earth's rotation affected bullet trajectory. Sarah positioned herself 20 feet behind him, sweeping the same 3 square feet of concrete over and over. watching everything. Martinez's first shot was high and right.
His second overcorrected, landing low anyone left.
The third found closer to center,
But his 5-shot group measured 18 inches. For Delta Force qualification, they needed 10 inches or better.
"Damn it," Martinez muttered, standing up from the rifle.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Sarah knew exactly what he was doing wrong. He was anticipating recoil, flinching microseconds before the shot broke.
His breathing pattern was irregular, his trigger press was jerky instead of smooth, and he was making scope
corrections based on the last shot instead of analyzing the pattern of all shots. But nobody asked the cleaning lady about shooting technique.
"Take 5,
Davis told him. Clear your head. We'll run it again.
The team gathered near the water cooler, discussing Martinez's performance in low voices.
Sarah emptied her dustpan into the brass collection barrel.
The casings tingling like wind chimes. "Maybe it's mental," Chen was saying.
Performance anxiety.
"He shoots fine in practice, but chokes under evaluation pressure."
Or maybe he's hit his ceiling, another team member suggested.
"Not everyone has what it takes for this level." Sarah felt something stir inside her, a quiet anger that had been building for 3 years. These men were good at what they did, but they were wrong about so much. Wrong about talent, wrong about potential, wrong about who deserved respect. Martinez returned to the line, determination written across his face.
His second attempt measured 15 inches.
Better, but still not good enough.
I can't figure it out, he said, frustration evident.
"I'm doing everything right. The technique is solid. Sometimes it just doesn't click," Davis said sympathetically. "You'll get there. Maybe next month." Sarah continued cleaning, invisible as always, but something had changed inside her.
A decision was forming. Still unconscious, but building like pressure behind a dam.
The next morning brought the same routine. The team arrived at 0600, coffee in hand, talking about everything except what mattered. Sarah was already there, as always, making the facility ready for another day of training. "Did you see that video of the Marine Scout sniper course?" Miller was saying, pulling his rifle from its case.
They were shooting at moving targets from a helicopter.
"Absolutely insane shots."
That's the difference between training and combat, Jin replied.
"We practice perfect conditions. Real world is chaos." They settled into their stations, and Sarah noticed something different today.
A woman in civilian clothes stood in the observation area with Lieutenant Washington.
The range supervisor. She was taking notes, watching the shooters with analytical eyes. "Gentlemen," Washington called out, "this is Dr. Rebecca Stone from the Army Research Institute.
She's studying elite marksmanship development.
Pretend she's not here and shoot normally." The men exchanged glances but nodded. They were used to being studied, tested, evaluated. Dr. Stone watched for 2 hours, occasionally asking Washington questions in low voices. Sarah paid attention while appearing not to, a skill she'd refined to perfection.
During the mid-morning break,
Sarah was close enough to overhear their conversation. "What I'm seeing confirms the research, Doctor,"
Stone was saying. Elite performance correlates with 3 factors: extensive deliberate practice,
high-quality instruction, and innate spatial reasoning ability.
The third factor is the bottleneck.
You can teach technique,
but you can't teach the cognitive
architecture that processes complex spatial information rapidly. Sarah's hand stilled on her broom. That was wrong. Completely wrong. Spatial reasoning could absolutely be developed. Sarah had proven it to herself over 3 years of mental practice.
She built those neural pathways through visualization and understanding.
Not through innate gift. "So you're saying some people simply can't reach elite levels?" Washington asked. "Exactly. There's a ceiling based on cognitive capacity. Training can optimize performance within those constraints, but it can't overcome fundamental limitations." Sarah felt that pressure building higher.
The dam was about to break.
The afternoon session was focused
on rapid target acquisition.
Multiple targets at varying distances.
Limited time to engage each one. Speed combined with accuracy.
The ultimate test of integrated skill. Martinez was struggling again. His accuracy was acceptable, but his transition time between targets was too slow. He'd acquired the first target fine,
but hesitate on the second, double-check the third.
"You're thinking too much," Davis coached. "Trust your instincts. Let your training take over." But Martinez couldn't shut off his analytical mind. Sarah recognized the problem because it mirrored her own thinking style. Martinez needed to understand why before he could trust the how. The day ended with Martinez still struggling, his frustration palpable.
As the team packed their gear, Sarah heard Chen talking quietly to Davis. "He's not going to make it, is he? Probably not this cycle. Maybe if he trains another 6 months.
6 months of the same training that's not working now.
What's that going to change?
Maybe nothing. Maybe he's just hit his limit. They left, their voices fading up the stairs. Sarah stood alone in the empty range,
surrounded by the evidence of their practice-spent bras scattered across concrete, targets threaded by thousands of rounds.
the lingering smell of gunpowder. She set down her broom and walked to Martinez station. This time, she picked up the rifle he'd left on the bench. It felt different than she'd imagined. Heavier, more real. The metal was cold against her hands, the texture of the grip rough and purposeful.
Sarah had never fired a weapon in her life, but she'd watched tens of thousands of shots fired. She'd studied ballistics tables, weather patterns, human physiology. She'd run mental simulations until her brain had worn neural pathways
as deep as any physical practice could create. Theory and observation,
understanding and visualization. Was it enough?
She'd never know unless she crossed the line from invisible observer to active participant. The next morning, Sarah arrived earlier than usual.
She went through her normal routine checking equipment, preparing the range, sweeping the floors. But when the sniper team arrived,
she didn't fade into the background quite as completely as before. The day followed its familiar pattern until mid-morning, when Martinez faced another
qualification attempt. Dr. Stone
had returned to observe, clipboard in hand, ready to document another example of someone hitting their cognitive ceiling. Martinez's first 3 shots were acceptable, but not exceptional. The pressure was getting to him, visible in the tension across his shoulders.
Relax, Davis coached.
Breathe. You've done this 1,000 times. The 4th shot went wide. Martinez swore under his breath. Sarah found herself speaking before she'd consciously decided to. Your breathing pattern is wrong. The range went absolutely silent. Every head turned toward her. Martinez blinked. What? You're breathing, Sarah repeated, her heart hammering but her voice steady. You're holding your breath too long.
It's increasing your heart rate and causing micro-tremors.
You need to shoot at the natural respiratory pause, not while actively holding air in your lungs. Martinez stared at her like she'd suddenly started speaking Mandarin. What?
Davis recovered first. Ma'am, with respect.
The breathing technique Martinez is using is standard military doctrine.
It's been proven effective for decades. It's effective for some people, Sarah countered, but Martinez has a higher resting heart rate and faster respiratory cycle.
The standard technique is working against his physiology, not with it. He needs to modify the timing. Dr. Stone had moved closer, her expression fascinated.
How do you know his respiratory cycle? I've watched him shoot for 3 years.
I've observed that his accuracy improves in sessions where
he's more physically tired.
Not because fatigue helps, but because his breathing naturally slows.
The standard doctrine tells him to hold his breath, but his body fights that. If he shoots during the
natural pause between breaths,
instead of artificially creating a pause,
his accuracy will improve. The men exchanged confused glances. The cleaning woman was offering
technical shooting advice based on 3 years of observation.
Martinez looked at Davis, who shrugged.
Can't hurt to try.
Martinez settled back into position. This time, instead of deliberately holding his breath, he let his breathing flow naturally
and broke the shot during the organic pause. Between exhale and inhale, the round impacted to inches from center.
His eyebrows shot up.
He worked the bolt and tried again. Same technique, 1 inch from center. 3 more shots, each one closer to perfect than the last. His 5-shot group measured 7 inches well within qualification standards. Martinez stood slowly, staring at the target display like it might be lying to him. Then he turned to Sarah. How did you? I mean, you don't even shoot.
How could you possibly know that would work? Sarah met his eyes.
I don't shoot.
But I observe. I analyze. I understand. And understanding is powerful. Who are you?
Dr. Stone asked, approaching with undisguised curiosity.
Sarah Martinez. Facility maintenance. You're the cleaning woman.
I clean the facility, but I also pay attention to everything that happens here.
Every shot, every correction,
every success and failure. For 3 years, I've been running simulations in my head, analyzing patterns, understanding the science. I've probably learned more about
marksmanship than most active
shooters because I've had to understand it, theoretically, before I ever touched a weapon.
Washington had joined the group now.
Sarah, are you saying you could shoot?
Based purely on observation and theory.
I don't know.
I've never tried. Martinez did something unexpected. He gestured to his rifle, still on the bench. Try now. Sarah's pulse spiked. This was the moment.
The invisible woman stepping fully into the light. Okay, she said simply. She approached the bench like she'd done thousands of times in her imagination.
The rifle felt familiar despite being foreign.
She checked the chamber empty, loaded a magazine with smooth efficiency that came from mental practice.
The team watched in absolute silence as Sarah settled into shooting position.
Her stance was textbook. Perfect, because she'd studied.
Perfect stances for 3 years. Her cheek weld was optimal,
Because she understood the geometry of sight alignment. Her breathing was controlled because she'd memorized the physiology.
she acquired the target at 500 meters through the scope,
Made a minor adjustment to the parallax.
noted the wind flags indicating a 3 mile per hour crosswind from left to right, calculated the necessary hold off in her head.
Her finger found the trigger. Smooth pressure, steady increase. The surprise brake that prevented flinching.
The rifle cracked.
The recoil surprised her no.
Simulation could fully prepare for that, but
Her position absorbed it correctly. Downrange. The electronic scoring system beat. Dead center. Perfect bullseye.
someone exhaled loudly. Sarah wasn't sure who. She worked the bolt, ejecting the spent casing in a gleaming arc.
Chambered the next round.
Made a minute scope adjustment to compensate for barrel warming.
The second shot cracked. Dead center again. The hole so close to the first that they overlapped.
3 more rounds followed. Each one struck within a 2-inch circle at 500 meters. A grouping that would qualify her as expert marksman on her first time touching a rifle. Sarah SAF'd the weapon,
Cleared it, and set it carefully on the bench. Then she turned to face the stunned team.
"It's not about natural talent," she said quietly. "It's about understanding what needs to happen and making it happen. The rifle doesn't care about your rank or experience.
Physics doesn't care about your background. If you do everything correctly, position, breathing, trigger press, wind compensation, you will hit your target. Every time."
Martinez found his voice first.
That's impossible. Nobody shoots like that their first time.
It's not my first time. Not mentally.
I've shot this rifle in my head approximately 10,000 times over 3 years. My body's never done it. But my brain has worn the neural pathways just as deep. Mental practice and physical practice create similar results in the brain. I just proved the theory works.
Dr. Stone was writing frantically on her clipboard.
This contradicts everything we thought we knew about skill acquisition. You've essentially demonstrated that understanding and visualization can substitute for physical practice to a remarkable degree.
Not substitute, Sarah corrected.
Accelerate. I still need physical practice to refine my technique.
But the foundation built through understanding is solid.
Maybe more solid than foundation.
Built purely through repetition without comprehension. Washington spoke up. "Sarah, would you be willing to shoot at longer distances? I need to understand the limits of what you're describing." "Yes, sir."
They moved to the 1,000-meter range, the distance where Martinez had struggled. Sarah took her time studying the conditions.
Wind was more variable at this distance, changing speed and direction across the range.
Temperature gradients created mirage effects.
The bullet would be in flight for over a second.
Time enough for tiny errors to become massive misses.
But Sarah had studied this problem for 3 years. She understood atmospheric lensing, Coriolis effects, spin drift. She'd memorized the ballistic tables for common ammunition types.
She made her calculations, adjusted the scope, and settled into position.
The first shot at 1,000 meters took her 30 seconds to prepare.
When she fired, the team watched the bullet's time of flight with held breath. The target system beeped. 4 inches from center. Not perfect, but remarkable for someone's first attempt at extreme range.
Sarah made corrections based not on luck, but on analysis. The shot had impacted slightly low and right, which told her the wind was stronger than she'd estimated in the final 100 meters of flight.
Her second shot landed within 2 inches of center. By her 5th shot,
she was consistently hitting within a 3-inch circle at 1,000 meters. The team stood in absolute silence, processing what they'd witnessed.
Their assumptions about talent, about who deserved respect, about the nature of skill itself, all of it was being rewritten in real time.
Chen finally spoke.
"I've been shooting for 15 years.
Fired probably 100,000 rounds.
And you just matched my accuracy on your first day touching a rifle. I don't understand how that's possible." "It's possible because I had an advantage you didn't have," Sarah said. "I had 3 years to learn without ego getting in the way.
I could watch people make mistakes
And learn from them without having to make those mistakes myself. I could study the science without anyone telling me I was overthinking it.
and I was invisible. So I could observe without performance pressure."
In a strange way, being overlooked was the best education possible.
Martinez shook his head slowly.
3 years.
"You were here 3 years, and I never even asked your name.
You knew my name.
We share it. You just never saw me as someone worth knowing." The words carried no bitterness, just simple truth. But Martinez flinched like he'd been struck. "I'm sorry," he said.
And he meant it.
Washington stepped forward, his expression serious.
Sarah, I think we need to talk about your future here, because it's pretty clear you're wasted in facility maintenance.
I like facility maintenance, Sarah said.
It gave me time to learn, but you could teach. You could help others develop this understanding-based approach.
You've just demonstrated a completely different pathway to expertise.
That's valuable.
That could change how we train, Sarah considered.
Teaching meant visibility.
It meant stepping permanently out of the shadows that had protected and educated her. It meant people would have expectations, opinions, judgments about her.
But it also meant helping people like
Martinez intelligent
shooters who'd been told they lacked
talent when they really just lacked understanding. I'll think about it, she said. Dr. Stone was still writing. This needs to be documented, studied. If your approach can be replicated,
it could revolutionize skill acquisition across multiple domains.
Not just marksmanship, it can be replicated, Sarah said with quiet confidence.
Because there's nothing special about me. I just paid attention, tried to understand,
and was willing to learn from everyone around me, whether they knew they were teaching or not.
Anyone could do the same
thing in any field if they stopped
worrying about looking stupid and started focusing on understanding why things work the way they do. The session ended, but everything had changed.
Word spread through the base with remarkable speed.
By evening, Sarah's demonstration was being discussed in every unit.
The next day, Washington officially offered her a position as a civilian marksmanship instructor,
developing curriculum based on her understanding-first approach.
The salary was triple what she made in maintenance. Martinez asked if she'd coach him personally for his next qualification attempt. Dr. Stone requested
permission to conduct a formal study of
Sarah's learning methodology, and Chen, the quiet one who was actually the best shot on the team, pulled Sarah aside privately.
You changed the way I think about what I do, he told her. I've been shooting on instinct for so
long that I'd forgotten. There was science underneath it, watching you break it down, understanding each variable.
It made me realize I can still get better, that I haven't hit a ceiling.
None of us have.
We just stopped trying to understand and started relying on repetition.
Thank you for that. Sarah accepted the instructor position. Over the following months,
she developed a comprehensive
curriculum that combined theoretical understanding
with practical application. Her students learned ballistics, meteorology, physiology,
and psychology before they ever fired a shot.
The results were remarkable. Qualification rates improved by 40%.
Soldiers who'd been labeled as lacking talent
suddenly became proficient marksmen once they understood the underlying principles.
Martinez passed his Delta Force selection on the next attempt, crediting Sarah's coaching for finally helping him overcome his mental barriers.
And Sarah herself continued to develop her practical skills, moving from theory to mastery, through the same understanding-based approach she taught others.
6 months after her demonstration, Sarah stood in front of a class of struggling
soldiers who'd been told
they'd probably never qualify,
that maybe they should consider different military roles.
You've been told you lack natural talent, Sarah began.
That some people are born for this, and you are not one of them.
I'm here to tell you that's complete nonsense. Marksmanship isn't magic.
It's not a mystical gift. It's applied physics, controlled physiology, and consistent mechanics. And every single one of
you can master it if you're willing to.
Understand it first and practice it second.
I am living proof. 6 months ago, I'd never touched a weapon. Today, I outshoot people who've been training for decades. Not because I'm special, but because I understood before I acted. And you can do exactly the same thing.
She saw hope ignite in their eyes, the same hope she'd carried silently for 3
years while everyone assumed
she was just the cleaning woman.
Let's begin, Sarah said.
Not with shooting, but with understanding. Because once you truly understand something, the doing becomes easy. The invisible expert had become visible, but she never forgot the 3 years of silence that made her who she was.
The observation, the analysis, the determination to learn even when no one thought she was
capable of learning anything. She'd proven that expertise can develop in the shadows,
in the quiet spaces where nobody's watching.
That respect doesn't require permission, it requires competence.
And that the most dangerous people in any room might be the ones
everyone assumes don't matter.
Sarah Martinez started as the woman who swept floors and collected brass. She became the woman who revolutionized how elite soldiers thought about skill,
talent, and potential.
All because she refused to accept invisibility as limitation. She transformed it into opportunity.
If this story moved you, if it made you think about the invisible experts in your own life, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Silent
warriors for more incredible stories about
People who prove that respect isn't given, it's earned in silence.
perfected in shadows and revealed when the moment is right.
Share this story with someone who needs to hear that their quiet observations matter.
That their patient learning counts. That their invisible expertise will have its day.
Because somewhere right now, someone's watching, learning,
And preparing to shatter every assumption the world has made about them. That person could be you. That person could be anyone.
We just have to look closely enough to see them.